Hey guys, Mr. Riz here to help you out on the review worksheet for the first part of Chapter 4. So remember with Chapter 4, we're breaking this up into smaller groups, and we're just going to have a quiz over graphing. So let's jump into this review here. So what do you want to do in the first couple problems here are to just graph the parabola. You can use Desmos, but remember with practicing here, we're going to try to not use Desmos just to see if we can get this right and build our skills that way. So first off, our equation here is in standard form. So standard form is y equals a times x squared plus bx plus c, which is good. But usually we like to graph in vertex form, which is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Because the vertex here is located at hk, and the axis of symmetry is x equals h. So we do have to do a little bit of work here. We have to remember that to get the h, we're going to use the formula negative b over 2a. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's find h here. H is going to be negative, b is 8, and then 2 times negative 2. All right, so that'd be a negative 8 over a negative 4. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is 2. All right, so that means the vertex is at 2 something, and the axis of symmetry is x equals 2. All right, what we're also going to do here is put the vertex right in the middle, and then we'll work on finding out the other points. To find our k value, we're going to take that number and plug it into the equation. So don't have a lot of room here, so I'm just going to write just off to the side here. To get k, we're going to take our equation, but we're going to change the x's to 2 because that's what our h is. All right, let's see. If we square 2, 2 times 2 is 4, times negative 2 is negative 8. 8 times 2 is 16. And we got plus 3. And then if we do that, negative 8 plus 16 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. So the vertex is at 211. So over 2, up 11. All right, so it's slightly off this grid. We're going to guess right here. I'm also going to put in the axis of symmetry. That's just going to be like this folded over line where everything is reflected from it. It will help us graph the other points. All right, so let's complete the table here. We can pick 3 and 4. Those are two numbers bigger than 2, and 1 and 0. Those are two numbers smaller. So to find out the other points here, we're going to plug these numbers in, and we can plug in 1 or 3 into the equation, and we'll figure out another set of points. I'm going to plug in 1 because that's an easier number in my opinion. So what's negative 2 times 1 squared plus 8 times 1 plus 3. All right, 1 squared is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Well, I'm kind of writing on the graph. Oh, well. 8 times 1 is 8, and 3. All right, so negative 2 plus 8 is 6. 6 plus 3 is 9. So that means 1 goes to 9, and because it's symmetric, 3 would also go to 9. So, okay, 1's at 9 here, 3 would be at 9. And we'll do another point here. We can either plug in the 0 or the 4. I'm going to plug in 0. All right, so negative 2 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0 plus 3. 0 squared is 0. 0 times negative 2 is 0. 8 times 0 is 0. Add 3 on there. All right, 0 goes to 3. That also means 4 goes to 3. 0 goes to 3. 4 goes to 3. Okay, and that's pretty much good enough that we can connect the dots and say, this is what the graph looks like. Now to answer these other points here, we'll just like think about what's going on here. The y-intercept, where does it cross the y-axis? When x is 0, the y-intercept is at 3. So the y-intercept x is always 0. Min or max, we have a maximum, and we have a maximum, we can tell because a is negative, and the highest point that this graph goes up to is our k number, which is 11. All right, and then a range. All right, since we have a maximum, our range goes from negative infinity, that's the lowest this graph goes down to, all the way up to 11. Let's go ahead. Let's keep this going. Some more practice. If you ever want to pause the video at your own time, try to complete these, go through. All right, so this next one here is in standard form. We got y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Cool, so we don't really have to do any tough math. All right, our vertex, which is at hk, the h number is, be careful here, it would be -3, because if we subtract a -3, that's the same thing as +3, and our k is at -4. All right, so -3, -4 is our vertex. The axis of symmetry is x equals -3. So it's x equals the h number. The y-intercept will wait on, and we know that we would have a minimum because our a number is technically a +1, and our minimum would be at our k, -4. That means our range, our graph is going to make a smile face here because a is positive. That means the lowest we go down is -4, and we would go all the way up to infinity. But let's fill out the table. Maybe answering some of those things will be a little bit easier later on. All right, so we're going to put -3 right in the middle, and we can do -2 and -1, or we can do -4 and -5. Okay, we already know -3 goes to -4. We just have to find two other points. So let's pick either -2 or -4. I'm going to pick -2. So what is -2 plus 3 squared minus 4? All right, -2 plus 3 is 1. 1 squared is 1. And 1 minus 4 is -3. So -2 goes to -3. -4 would also go to -3. So -2 is down to -3. -4 is also down to -3. And then we're going to pick 1 or 5 to plug in. I'm going to stick with 1. -1 plus 3 squared minus 4. All right, -1 plus 3 is 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. So -1 goes to 0. 5 would go to 0. Okay, and then our graph goes like this. Okay, so the only tough part that we don't know here is what is the y-intercept? Now, it'd been nice if the y-intercept was on their table, and otherwise we're just kind of taking a guess here. One thing we got to remember here is the y-intercept is that x is always 0. So what we're going to have to do if it isn't on our table, we're going to have to plug it in to figure it out. So we're just going to plug 0 in for x and figure out what we get. So remember, we're just plugging in 0 for x. What's 0 plus 3 squared minus 4? All right, 0 plus 3 is 3. 3 squared is 9. 9 minus 4 is 5. So I took a pretty good guess here. It'd be 0, 5. But the y-intercept could be at 0, 5. So you guys can see here with the vertex problems, or the vertex form problems, they're usually easier to get this information. Kind of easier to get the table, but the y-intercept can be a little difficult. Okay, we got 2 more problems. We got a standard form and then another vertex form. If you want to pause the video and try any of them on your own, feel free, but keep this going here. All right, here we go. Next. All right, so this is not in vertex form, so we got to find h. So it's going to be -b is -6 over 2 times a is 3. So we got a +6 over 6, and that would be 1. So our vertex would be at 1 something. Our axis of symmetry is x equals 1. So we're going to have this nice older line. A couple other things we can note here. We don't know the y-intercept, but we'll find it out on our table because we'll have to do 2 and 3, 0, -1. We would have a minimum because a is positive. And then because we have a range, we know it's going to go with a minimum. It's going to go something to infinity. All right, let's find, excuse me, our K value by plugging 1 into the equation. So what is 3 times 1 squared minus 6 times 1 minus 1? All right, 1 squared is 1 times 3 is 3. 6 times 1 is 6 minus 1. So 3 minus 6 is -3. Minus 1 is -4. So that means we have a minimum or a point at 1, -4 down here. So our vertex is at 1, -4. And that'd be our min at -4, meaning our range would be from -4 to infinity. So you can kind of see how like can learn a lot and find some other things based off of this. Okay, to get our other points here, let's plug in either 0 or 2. Let's just plug in 0. It's going to be kind of easier. So it's 3 times 0 squared minus 6 times 0 minus 1. That's going to be 0 minus 6 times 0 is 0 minus 1 is -1. All right, so 0 is at -1. Because it's symmetric, 2 would be at -1. What that also tells us is the y-intercept is at 0, -1. Remember, the y-intercept is wherever the graph crosses the y-axis. All right, get one more point just to make the graph look a little bit better. Let's plug in another number, 3 or -1. I'm going to pick -1. I feel confident with my negatives here. So what's -1 squared minus 6 times -1 minus 1. Kind of ran out of room there. All right, -1 squared is a +1. 1 times 3 is 3. -6 times -1 is a +6 minus 1. All right, so this would be 9 minus 1, and that would be 8. So that's 8, and that's 8. So let's see, -1 goes all the way up to +8, and 3 goes over to +8. And we just connect the dots. It's a very skinny parabola. Okay, we'll keep this going here. One more graph. This one is in vertex form, which is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. All right, great. So our vertex here is at h, which is 2. That's the number being subtracted from the x, and k, which is 3. So that means our vertex here is at 2, 3, right in the middle. Our axis of symmetry, actually, let's mark that 2, 3 right here. Our axis of symmetry is x equals 2. This is the point where everything's going to be folded over. Y-intercept, we don't know that yet, but when we fill out our table, we'll have to pick 3 and 4, and 1 and 0. When we plug in 0, we'll figure that out. That's cool. We would have a maximum. A is a negative number. Whenever we have a negative a, it makes a sad face. And that gives us a maximum, and the maximum will be right here at our k number at 3. And our range, if 3 is the highest number, that means negative infinity is going to be the lowest. All right, so not too bad if we kind of remember these things. Remember, you can use your notes on this, so add those pieces of information down. All right, we either got to plug in 1 or 3. I'm going to pick 3. So what's y equals -2 times 3 minus 2 squared plus 3. All right, so let's see. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. 1 times -2 is -2. And then -2 plus 3 is 1. So when we plugged in 3, we got 1. If we would plug in 1, we would also get 1. So 1 is at 1. 3 is at 1. All right, next we got to plug in 0 or 4. I'm going to plug in 0 because that's going to be the y-intercept anyways. All right, this one be very careful with. 0 minus 2 is -2. -2 squared is +4. We times that by -2, that's -8. -8 plus 3 is -5. So when we plugged in 0, it's at -5. We plugged in 4, it would also be at -5. So 4 is at -5. 0 is also at -5. Good enough to get our graph. All right, so our y-intercept was at 0, -5. That's where the x was 0. Okay. All right. Now the other parts here, remember you can use Desmos to help you figure these things out. But we're going to try to do it so we kind of understand the rules behind it. So if we want to find the y-intercept of the graph, remember the y-intercept is when x equals 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the x's with 0. One thing to notice here, this equation is not in normal format, but it really won't matter because we're going to find what's g of 0. So what's -4 times 0 squared minus 5 plus 13 times 0? That's going to be 0 minus 5 plus 0, or -5. So that means our y-intercept for this first problem would be at 0, -5. All right, what is the vertex? Okay, this one is not given to us in vertex form, so we do need to find the h, which is -b over 2a is 5. So that's a positive 10 over 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. So our vertex is going to be at 1 something. We're now going to plug that number in for x. So what's 5 times 1 squared minus 10 times 1 minus 13? So let's see. 1 squared is 1 times 5 is 5. 5 minus 10 and then minus 13. So that'd be -5. That'd be -18. There's the vertex. All right, the x-intercepts is where the graph crosses the x-axis. I'm going to tell you, we haven't gone over this section yet, but you can use Desmos. This will be a bonus. To do this without, you would have to factor this. You'd have to figure out what two numbers multiply together to give you -18, add together to get -3. That'd be -6 and a +3. You'll set those both to 0. And so you get x equals +6 and x equals -3. So it means we have x-intercept at 6, 0 and another one at -3, 0. That's going to be a bonus on the test. That's why I went through it pretty quick. All right, which direction does k open if k is this? So the one thing, if we want to find the direction it opens, we need to know a. So we might need to rewrite this as -3x squared plus 5x plus 5. All right, so then if we look here, a is a negative number, and this would open down. It'd make a sad face. All right, is there another one? Of course, there's one more problem. All right, what is the axis of symmetry here? The axis of symmetry is always x equals h. The problem is we don't know what h is, but we can use the formula -b over 2a. So it's going to be -12 over 2 times a is 4. All right, so that'd be a +12 over 8. +12 divided by 8 doesn't come out super nice, but we can call it 1.5. So the axis of symmetry is x equals 1.5. If you want to get real fancy, you can reduce that fraction and say that is x equals 3 over 2. All right, guys, thanks for watching this video. Hope you have fun. Hope you're feeling confident on the test, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.